Neither. I thought you watched TV. Neither player's seasons ended on a high note. Jackson got destroyed by the Chargers in the playoffs, while Rodgers posted the worst QBR of his career. And the Packers didn't even make the playoffs. It was such a rough season for Stephen A. last year. Stephen A., I'll start with you. Who's the more intriguing story this season, Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers?
Well, for me, it's easily Lamar Jackson. The reason why is because I'm not wondering about anything involving Aaron Rodgers. I'm accustomed to seeing greatness. I expect nothing short of greatness from him, and I doubt that I'll be wrong about that. Last year was an off year for him. He had 25 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions, completing nearly 63% of his passes. I mean, stop the presses. What a god-awful performance by Aaron Rodgers, please. He'll be just fine. The intrigue comes from Lamar Jackson. Number one, because let's face reality here. We've made a lot of noise about him last year, but it was primarily because of the dual threat that he was. He's got tremendous wheels on him, and he can run the football better than some running backs, for crying out loud. He's absolutely electrifying in that regard. As a passer, he has a lot of work to do. He only completed 58% of his passes. Now, he was 6-1 as a starter, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. But he only completed 58% of his passes, only threw 6 touchdowns in 7 games, for crying out loud. He didn't knock anybody's socks off. And when we saw him against the Los Angeles Chargers in the postseason, even though he finished the game 14 of 29 for 194 yards, that's completing 48% of his passes. And, oh, by the way, those stats were bloated because of his performance late in the game, like in the fourth quarter. The first 3 quarters of that playoff game was one of the most horrific performances we had ever seen from a quarterback in the history of watching the National Football League. It was god-awful. So we have to remember all of that as well. So he's got a lot to prove. And I think that when you look at what's going on in the AFC North with Cleveland, with Pittsburgh without AB and Le'Veon Bell, and with people having their expectations or lacking expectations about them, with a new coach in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor, you still got your regular team intact, for crying out loud. A.J. Green, hopefully he'll get back sooner than later from his health issue. Andy Dalton has some things to prove as well. So there's a level of urgency within the AFC North. And that's not to say it doesn't exist in the NFC North with Green Bay, but I just look at Lamar Jackson and what he brings to the table, the fact that you've moved on from Joe Flacco. This is the route that you've gone, and the need for him to prove that he can actually be a thrower of the football on the NFL level. I think those are the things that allow you to focus on him and be intrigued by him more so than the expected from Aaron Rodgers.
I'm going to talk about Shakespeare and Mike Tyson, Stephen A. You know why Shakespeare?
Kind of asleep,
you know why
kind of awake.
Shakespeare wrote about kings and stuff, right? Because the human drama is elevated when people feel it's more important, and this is happening in big, important historical moments. And that's Aaron Rodgers. Whatever happens with Aaron Rodgers is more intriguing than Lamar Jackson, because it's like Shakespeare writing about kings or Julius Caesar or something. Aaron Rodgers is the best I've ever seen do it, and you agree with that.
Wait, is he Shakespeare or he's the king? Or
he's the king.
Okay, just
Well,
that's
can I
where
ask
the
you a
drama
question?
is. And,
a quick question,
Lamar
Max.
Jackson, go ahead.
Is there anybody more intriguing than Shakespeare that you could come up with?
Well, how about Mike Tyson?
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
That works better
This is
for
part
me.
two. This is part two. So the drama is always elevated when you're talking about the important guys. And Aaron Rodgers is more important than Lamar Jackson, because it's highly unlikely that Lamar Jackson will ever achieve on the level that Aaron Rodgers has achieved. Mike Tyson. Do you remember the Franz Botha fight? Stephen A., I know you're a big boxing fan. He knocked Franz Botha out in 5 rounds with one right hand. But he'd lost a couple rounds early on. And I remember thinking at the time, whoa, something just changed in the boxing universe. For the first time ever, Mike's going to be the underdog if he fights Lennox Lewis. He'd have never been the underdog. But after that Botha fight, everyone just, it's another Tyson knockout. They ran the highlights. But people were paying attention. It's like, yo, how do you get outboxed for 3 rounds? 3-4 rounds by Franz Botha. The world has just changed. Our perception has changed so subtly that people won't even really be aware of it. But damn, Mike could be the underdog against someone? That's what just happened to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has always existed in a world where people who are really watching go, that dude's just way better than everybody else. He's just different. Then all of a sudden you had last season. They didn't make the playoffs. He ran his coach out of town. There was an issue with the franchise. They didn't consult him enough about who's coming in, et cetera. And at the same time, not only did Tom Brady win yet another Super Bowl, but Patrick Mahomes showed up. And for the first time since Rodgers came on the scene, we looked at a guy and said, maybe he's the most talented guy. And he's young and ascending. And by the way, the reigning league MVP. So where does that leave Aaron Rodgers? You say, we already know all about Rodgers. No, not quite. The world, in a subtle way, our perception of the football universe just shifted. We don't quite view Aaron Rodgers exactly as we did because of who he's being compared to. and what happened last year, the way we viewed him a couple of years ago. And now add to that, he's with a new coach. So we got to see, hold on, Rodgers, like, you run the last guy to town, we agreed with you. It was old-fashioned offense, got it. But now you got a new guy. How's that going to work out? Are you going to miss the playoffs again? Is there going to be a problem with this coach, too? Rodgers is one of the most intriguing stories in the NFL this year.
Well, let me tell you why you're so wrong about this. Number one, this is not boxing. This is not tennis. This is not even basketball. This is football. A lot of times, these guys don't even get to go up against one another. You can look at Patrick Mahomes and recognize his greatness and the fact that you're looking at him and saying this is a different kind of cat. And this still doesn't take anything away from what Aaron Rodgers brings to the table. Tom Brady doesn't take away from Drew Brees. Drew Brees doesn't take away from Aaron Rodgers. You look at the greatness of those individuals and you got to recognize them. That's number one. Number two, Aaron Rodgers was not a healthy individual. 2 years ago, he got his collarbone broken, if I remember correctly, by Anthony Barr in Minnesota, game 3 or 4 during the season. Last year, he got injured again. He just played through it, but he clearly was hobbled, wasn't healthy for the last 3 quarters of the season. Now, if Aaron Rodgers were healthy, y'all, and those results transpired last year, you would have a point. But Aaron Rodgers has been injured the last 2 years. One way he couldn't even play the last 3 quarters of the season, and last year he played through it the last 3 quarters of the season. If there's anything that's intriguing, it's how is he getting along with Coach LaFleur? That's the question. How's he getting along? Are they vibing? Are you going to sit up there and call your own plays? Ignore this rookie head coach and what he said. That I understand that intrigue, but the intrigue is not about the talent and the exceptionalism about Aaron Rodgers.
No, you're saying Drew Brees doesn't take away from Tom Brady. No, this is different, Stephen A. There's sometimes a guy who comes along and you put him in his own category. Like, come on, he's a different type of cat, a different animal than the others. It's one of the reasons I thought it was so interesting when LeBron lost the regular season MVP to KD. And I thought, you know, LeBron didn't win the MVP every year, but that's because they were having sympathy MVPs for other guys, the way they did with Jordan. But for the first time when KD won it, I thought, whoa, KD actually deserved that regular season MVP. And my perception of the basketball universe shifted a little bit. Like, LeBron's perch was suddenly not quite as ironclad, no doubt, as it was before. Yeah, but you just lost your argument. That's where Aaron Rodgers is right now.
But you just lost your argument because even though we might talk about LeBron James and a KD or LeBron James and Kawhi, everyone recognizes they're still on a different level than almost everybody else. But they're still on a different level.
We got to wrap it up.
But it's not, okay.
Yeah, we got to leave it there. But I do want to see Lamar Jackson. We know his impact on the ground game's undeniable, but that